Yay,
So
Nighthaunt!
we can make Brendan play Skaven. Did I just hear that right?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Currently,
And it's winning.
$2,000.
That's all it
$2,000 has been dedicated to making Brendan play Skaven.
Yeah, when you put in your donation, all you have to do is like you click on like the options that are there for his army, and your money that you donate will go towards that option.
The Brendan Plays Skaven Fund. I like
Yes.
it.
Vote for Skaven. If
Yes.
this has not been clear enough, vote for Skaven because
that was block 1 was purely dedicated to making sure Skaven.
360 clan rats fits in the list, I think.
I've got a bunch of boxes of sensor bears right there.
Nope, all clan rats.
So you're gonna donate to the Skaven fund for Brendan?
No.
I'll donate 200 clan rats.
Oh boy.
They're on square bases and not painted yet, but that's fine.
Square bases, my lord. How old are those?
Yes.
Yes.
So not only does have to go through and clip off 200 clan rats from square bases without destroying their feet.
Exactly.
That's worse than building them.
Yes, honestly. Trying to convert square bases to circle bases is terrible.
So Memphis painting, I'll hit introductions. Let's do a little round robin. I'll start with Jackie. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are, what your doctorate is in.
Sure. Is that supposed to be a secret, or do we just openly say?
No, you can say what your doctor's actually in. So let me take my focus off of my very important artwork here for a second. The most important artwork ever drawn on a charity stream specifically for Take This. I'm certain of it. So this is the Doctor's Block. This is a fan favorite we brought back this year with a new face. So this is a joke. I want you all sitting there in the audience to now become inside the joke, and I'm going to help you in. So they're all doctors. They are doctors. They play Warhammer. You might say that they are doctors of Warhammer. So whatever they're talking about right now, it has the authority of a doctor. Now, their doctorates are not in Warhammer, but, you know.
Well, Sean's might be.
No.
Welcome inside the joke. Congratulations, you are now inside the joke with all of us. So, Nick, you're doing a great job of heading around there and introducing everyone. So you can say what your doctor's actually in. You don't need to share, dox yourself by any means, but and then a brief history of you, Warhammer, etc. We'll go around and then it'll be good.
Okay, well, I guess I'll still start off. My name is Jackie. I have a Juris Doctorate, which means I'm a lawyer. Super fancy term for that. I play Nighthaunt. I've gone to a few tournaments alongside my husband that a lot of you know as Rocker You Boy with our YouTube channel of the same name. And I pretty much purely play Nighthaunt. I couldn't dedicate more facets of my brain to learning more rules than just one army. So that's me.
Go ahead and popcorn it onto someone else.
I guess I'll move it to Sean.
Hi everyone, I'm Sean. I have a doctorate in nuclear engineering, not in Warhammer, as Nick alluded to. I play loads of different armies. Right now I'm kind of on Stormcast because my Destruction retirement is a bit on hold as I get it painted. But I've probably played, 10, 12, 14 different armies over the last several years. Just like mixing it up, like bringing new things, like painting new things. And happy to be here. That's my third year, I think, doing this, and it's been a blast every time. So happy to see you all again, and happy to meet you, Jackie. So with that, I'll bounce it back to Nick.
Hi, I'm Nick. My doctorate is in design, specifically interaction design. So I do computer stuff. I'm currently drinking a locally brewed kettle sour from Upper Peninsula, Michigan, from Ordock Brewing Company. It's called Blue Canoe, blueberry kettle sour, delicious. Highly suggest. Currently playing, just coming off Big Stab of Spam, because I just do what Tom Guan does. Sean shakes his head. And now I'm going to steal what Carl Ong does and run KO at Pittsburgh next weekend, Sean. So we'll see what happens there.
Okay.
Bring it some KO.
Lists are due tomorrow.
Yeah, they are. And I got to find 10 Arcanauts because I swear I had 30 and I don't.
I've changed my list about 20 times in the last 24 hours. I can't decide what I want. I'm just like, the last 200 points I think is settled.
I can bring you some Stabbas.
No, I don't need Stabbas, dude. I'm good.
I mean, they're painted and they are destruction.
Good.
I'll pass it over to Alex. You can bring us home.
So I'm Alex. My doctorate is in clinical psychology. So I'm a psychologist who does therapy. I do psychotherapy. I do mental health treatment. I do psychological testing. And in terms of Warhammer, I play almost all things Dark Elf. So I have a Cities of Sigmar army, a Daughters of Cain army, but I also have I dabble elsewhere in Tzeentch and Stormcast. So a bit all over the place, but my heart is always with the Dark Elves. Oh, and I'm a proud member of the Pants Mafia, although now our erstwhile leader is back in Australia. So, we're a bit all over the place now.
Worldwide. Pants worldwide.
Oh, yeah, that's true. We just went international.
Yeah. Fantastic. Sean also has been known to play some international Warhammer.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I should have said I'm in the Detroit Warhammer Club, and I'm also a member of Team America. So I did just get back from playing in Prague, which was awesome.
Ooh, Prague's a cool.
Pretty humbling and amazing to travel the world to play with toy soldiers, and it's a great time.
I mean, that's insanity to me.
Yeah.
Like this hobby, this community just extends everywhere. It defies borders. It's just awesome. It's just something else.
Yeah, no, you get there with 20 some other countries, and everyone speaks a different language, but you all speak Warhammer at the table, right? I mean, it's just it's pretty incredible. Yeah, it's an incredible experience.
Speaking about mental health and Warhammer in general, so I'm on the autism spectrum, and Warhammer events are an absolute vacation from my life because I can talk about nothing but Warhammer for 48 hours straight, and nobody's eyes gloss over, nobody gets annoyed or bored. It's just all Warhammer all the time, and I don't know, it's like I was built for it. Not that I'm good, but I can talk about Warhammer ad nauseum. I mean, who else 2 and 3s with big stabas? I'm no Tom Guan.
It's one of the great things about having a shared hobby is that it gives people who do have that tendency to hyperfixate an audience who also wants to join them in that. So it becomes sort of normalized and very just natural. It becomes a really just positive experience for everyone.
We needed some shadow work, some shadow work here on Nagash's face, everybody.
It's a positive experience until Nick goes on a diatribe about how much he hates elves, and then I just mute Twitter for a while.
Yep, still hate elves.
I think I went to a doubles tournament many months ago now, but when I went at my doubles tournament, I spent so much time talking about my painting because we all had I didn't have a display board, but we had all of our armies out to be judged, and I did a metallic theme, even though I didn't necessarily do that purposely for any sort of meta. It was just cool looking paint, and everyone was just like, I love your paint, and I was like, oh, I'm glad. I just did it because it made them like oddly sparkly because I used Spirit Hose and I made my own metallic paint. Like I watered all the normal metallic paint down so that it actually glistens in the light rather than just being like a solid color. It looks very, iridescent actually, rather than just like solid metal. So that was pretty fun because everyone was like complimenting all of my painting, and I was just like, oh, this was unexpected to just have all of the hobby shop talk because I haven't gone to a lot of tournaments, so I didn't necessarily know what to expect. So it was a lot of fun to talk about everyone with all of their painting as well, since I only do Nighthaunt.
People are always happy to talk about the new techniques, the new approaches, the new like tools or paints that they used, and I feel like showing enthusiasm about someone else's army and the hobby that they've done is just one of the purest compliments we can really give. It just lights people up so much when you come to them and say like, hey, I love what you did here, or this model looks amazing. You've done such a great job.
I don't know if I like Nagash. I meant the intent was to give him sunken eyes, but now it looks like he has like eyebrows. We're gonna let this ride for a minute.
I think I missed something here. I just tuned in, but what are you working on, Mephisto?
So we had a donation incentive last block that I have to draw Nagash in MS Paint.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Sure, it's going splendidly.
Ta-da!
Am I missing this being displayed somewhere? Is it on the Twitch? I feel like I need to see this.
If you're on Twitch, you can. Yeah.
Got it. Too many feeds happening.
Too much Warhammer on the internet right now.
the horror, the huge manatee.
So there's a psychological test called the house tree person test. And you are given a prompt to draw a house, a tree, and a person. So I feel like we're watching Neff's person part of that test right now, and it's going to be diagnostic once it's completed.
The next you have to draw Nagash's house? Is that what we're saying?
Yes.
I'll throw a
Nagash tree.
I'll throw in a tree. Yeah, I'm good at trees. I like trees.
So what's everyone playing lately? I've been bouncing around. I'm just off the Brennan let me out of my Play Cities for a year challenge a little bit early because
did you make it the full year?
I did not because Living Cities got absolutely dumped on and
I've blown up. Yeah.
Hey, little Marathi showing up. How's it going? Speaking of Team America, she was on your team, right? It was her. And
she was. Shout out
Marathi. Yeah, right on. Yeah, right on. So awesome. Seeing people. Like we mentioned, we have doctors here. You can ask them their opinion. They are not experts on what you're about to ask them, I assure you. But you are talking to doctors.
I'm just waiting for that time when I'm on a plane somewhere and someone's like, "Is there a doctor on board?" I can be like, "Absolutely. This man is dying. How am I going to help you?" I mean, I could maybe fix
I can help you figure out his Facebook profile, but
that's about it.
You know, one of the hardest things for me is going to family parties or just general cocktail parties, because then once you drop the word lawyer, everyone's like, "Oh, I have a question." You're like, no.
Bye.
And everyone's like, "What do you mean? No?" And I was like, one, I probably have no idea or have no expertise in what you're about to ask me. There's 5,000 different types of law. I'm probably not an expert in what you're about to ask me. But even if I am, I cannot give you advice. And they're like, "What?" And it was something in law school they always told us, the cocktail party is your worst enemy for unsolicited advice. And you're just like...
So the solicited advice that I just solicited for you, speaking of, is People 3004 asks, so what is the scientific cure for rolling ones?
Consistent psychotherapy.
Buy Canadian dice.
Buy new dice.
Roll more sixes.
Or use an online roller.
Look at that. That is direct from science, everybody.
Put yourself in a game state where rolling ones doesn't actually hurt you. That's the real answer.
Or have someone else roll
or
for
in
you.
other words, just get good. I think that's kind of what I was saying.
As an alternative, develop a good, accepting, self-compassionate voice that walks you through the fact that you only roll once and helps you come to terms with that reality.
Armies entirely. If you switch to Deepkin and you get some bonuses, your ones automatically become 2s and 3s for the most part, from what Rocco, your boy, keeps telling me on and on.
But just play elves. That's what you're saying. Just play elves.
Oh yeah.
just run Purple Sun, and then those ones do good things.
Yeah, I can't play Nighthaunt when all you do is roll ones. You'll never get a Nighthaunt charge or anything fun as a Nighthaunt player.
Or
rolling ones.
Or play Tzeentch, where at least some of those ones can be something other than a 1. At least some of your dice, at least 9 dice in your game, can be something other than 1.
Unless you roll all 1s for your Destiny dice.
And then, good luck.
And then quit playing.
One of the last games I played with Tzeentch, I rolled 5 1s out of my 9 fate dice.
Amazing.
That stinks.
Yeah.
But it was against Fire Slayer, so I needed the battle shock. It was fine. It worked out.
There you go, yeah. Grim Goblin asks, does Dice Jail work? So Grim Goblin, the best form of behavior modification is positive reinforcement. So Dice Jail won't work very well, but you should praise the dice that roll 6s. That will encourage more of them to roll better.
I like it.
Is that a proven fact that inanimate objects will listen to you?
Oh, no, that's absolutely psychotic. But, if you're trying to help yourself through the process,
another conversation.
That's what I'd recommend.
Yeah. So we have Raptor Magic in the chat asking, "Who am I?" And I know the answer to that one, but I'll not dox
him. Shout out Anthony.
Yeah.
Oh, I was about to say, if you don't know who you are, that's probably a bigger philosophical question that I can't answer.
He's currently the best Sigmar player in America.
That's right, the reigning number 1.
Oh wow!
Greater than 1,000.
Congratulations!
Shout out to all the tough crowd in the chat. Good stuff. They throw a good party. They make good food.
Y'all don't need me.
All true.
I just make art. I am
You
Mephisto.
just make art.
I am the magical
I
Mr.
can see this
Mephisto,
monstrosity now.
the most artistic man in Age of Sigmar. All y'all who have won your hobby awards, look upon me and despair, for this art is art.
That's better than I was expecting when I logged into just being truthful.
So you're saying you exceeded your expectations were very low.
They were appropriately set. Oh no!
Under promise and over deliver has been the philosophy behind this Nagash picture.
Don't we have an art clause? I can't be interrupted while doing art to do workout, or is working out a form of art too?
You said a hobby award, and next weekend's the Steel City GT, and there's a special couple Midwest people coming that I know I can't beat, so I'm going for hobby award. So I was summoned by this.
I'll see you at the Steel City too, Chuck. I'll be there.
I'm gonna give Nagash a midriff real quick, if that's all right with y'all. Give him a little belly.
Steel City is Pittsburgh, is that right?
Pittsburgh, yeah.
I'll be there too.
My sister-in-law lives out there. I should try to go to a
Grab a ticket, Alex. Come on, there's spots left. Come on out.
Yeah, there's spots left. Come on out.
Available. Lists are due today, though, so get them in.
Not tomorrow. Tomorrow, I think. I hope.
Yeah, Sunday.
I thought it was today. So.
Might want to get that figured out, guys.
Yeah, maybe
double check.
That afterwards.
All right, so you're here for a reason, I sense. You're not going to go away unless I do something.
No, you can give the midriff to Nagash.
Okay, I can finish my midriff. See, I started drawing this midriff because, you see, you like, what are those things called? This is Daughters of Cain related.
Witch elves? Elves in general? Literally any female that's not a Lumineth in Warhammer?
I'm just saying midriffs are important, okay? Like, love the body you're in. Right, and Nagash is in a super ancient corpse, and look at the maps. Like, this corpse has defied some realities. I love how happy I unintentionally made Nagash, and so I'm just rolling with it. And I'm just like, nope, we got eyebrows now. I give him little, like, laugh lines. All right. Do your worst, well, not do your mercy. All right, what am I doing?
So, you've been inside all day.
Uh-huh.
You need to take a couple laps around inside your house.
Oh, I like this one.
Outside.
All right, we'll have Colin spot me.
Okay. We timing him?
How many laps?
The race?
You know I have a big house, right? It's like 2,500 square feet.
All right, do 3 laps. Do 3 laps.
Okay, it's a big house.
A gentle jog. Doesn't have to be sprints, just a gentle jog.
It's a great block for a jog anyway. Like I don't need to do anything with the doctors here.
We'll keep it on the rails, bud. Take your time.
We will.
All right, don't get me banned from Twitch, everybody, and donate lots of money to mental health.
Yeah.
So I'd like to.
Yes, please donate money to mental health. Please, we need it.
That's why we're here.
Thank you.
Yep, that's why we do this. I'd like to propose a topic of conversation. AOS, the current GHB. What are thoughts on it? How are you enjoying it? How has it changed your playstyle? Has it changed your playstyle? Has it changed the armies you put on the table?
Yes. I'm gonna zoom in on Nagash's midriff here. So proud of this midriff.
Excellent answer, Sean. Would you like to expand on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I always enjoy when a new GHB comes out, just kind of playing with the missions and building new lists and seeing how, I don't want to use the word meta, but seeing how the community adapts to it, right? Just to kind of see some folks just bring the same stuff. Some folks really try and exploit kind of whatever they think is exploitable in the various missions or battle tactics. So I think it's exciting. Certainly it's much different than the first AOS 3 GHB. I think the missions are a little bit more creative. They're less sort of straightforward, line up across your opponent and do things. I mean, there's some wacky stuff that goes on in some of the missions, which I know rubs some folks the wrong way, but in general, I like them. I think there's a couple that I would probably choose not to play if I had the choice. But in general, I like the missions, and I thought the tactics were tough at first, but once you kind of play a few games and get your head around, this 5 or 6 that you have a script for in most games, I think it's been fine. I think that the most interesting mechanic probably has been the proving ground mechanic. I think that really can impact how folks write lists and how folks think about, is it better to go first or go second? Is one drop still really good? That type of thing. I think the proving ground, the mechanic really kind of speaks to a lot of that, which is really, really interesting, because the proving ground says you need Galbets, but Bounty Hunters destroys all your Galbets. So you have these two competing mechanics that I think make it really interesting.
Alex, Jackie, Chuck.
So part of what I'm known for on Rantcast is for the silly lists segment, where I come forward and propose lists that are not necessarily good, or even necessarily that they do anything effective, but that they have a concept, and usually they prove why that concept is terrible. And one that I go back to often, and that's near and dear to my heart, is the list that punishes you for interacting with it. So something like Daughters of Cain list, where there are multiple different ways when you attack the unit and kill it, it hurts you back for doing that. And of course, whenever I try to do that, I roll ones on the actual damage back part, so I never actually wind up doing anything. But because of that, because that list is so near and dear to my heart, I was really excited for the new Xanthar Kai subfaction in Daughters of Cain, where all of your Melusai units, all of those fight on death, which is right in there with me. Like, yes, kill my stuff because I'm terrible at positioning. I'm bad at deployment. You're going to kill me anyway. So at least I'll get to use my thing before I take it off the table. And then, unfortunately, that makes all of those units into veterans who now everyone and their aunt has a special battalion that makes them do more damage to them. And it's already an army that can be on the fragile side. So I was really excited to play Xanthar Kai, and then the new JHB came out, and now I'm not playing Xanthar Kai. But luckily, the good thing in Daughters is that you can take the same list and plug it into some of the other sub-factions, and usually it works out pretty well.
Daughters are fine, dude. You'll be okay.
They're pretty good.
You'll be fine. Do you have 2 heart renders?
So, well, yeah. I mean, when you're playing at 1,810 points because you auto include 2 units of heart renders or however much it is, it hurts. It hurts to remove those points, but we'll deal without another Hag Queen.
Personally, I'm both enjoying and not enjoying the current GHB. I'm not the biggest fan of battle tactics. I love grand strategies, battle tactics. I'm glad they're harder. Don't get me wrong, but they're not my favorite aspect to this edition. But that said, this edition has caused me to think for this one GT to build 3 or 4 different lists. Eventually, I did what I did, where it's like, all right, I have a nice balanced list. I made a super competitive list. I made a hyper defensive list, and then I've ultimately landed on a Kraith list, which won't win me the event, but I'm going to have a hell of a good time rolling 4-ups as much as possible. And see where I can land with something that's not really some, like top tier with Daughters of Cain. And I brought 2 Canare, but I'm not bringing the Heart Renders. I'm bringing the Life Takers just to make it more fun with where I'm at. But like it's odd for me because I'll be honest, like I hope battle tactics don't survive into the new edition whenever we get there. Not that we need to rush to the new edition, but I don't need them in my life, especially with things like Proving Ground. There's extra layers. It's getting to be to the point of too much for me personally.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why I liked playing in my doubles tournament so much. So like, because there's just so many things to think about. I'm like the queen of having my own cheat sheet because Nighthaunt has just like so many magic and particular rules and stuff, and having the battle tactic and the grand strategy. My partner and I split it up where he was focusing on the battle tactics and the grand strategy so that I could focus more on overall deployment and just our movement entirely. And once I knew what our battle tactic was, like achieving it, so like we kind of split up the roles so we could focus on different things because there's just so much to focus on. And now with the new Nighthaunt book, it's not really changing what I play, but it will overall, as I learn how to do it, it will fundamentally change how I play a little bit, because all of the armies I've ever played with Nighthaunt, I just pick the models I want to paint, and then my partner and I figure out how to make it work as an army, because I don't buy things just to be like, oh, this is the great unit, I need this unit. I'm like, ooh, that looks cool. I could, because I have a whole theme to my army. They're all, because Lady Olander is a bride, so then I have my banshees are all bridesmaids, and so they're all painted accordingly. And then I have groomsmen, and I have they all have like little backstories as part of the wedding. So they're all painted in like bright pinks and purples, and white is a good theme in my army. So I always pick the models that make sense to my background story, and then I figure out how to make sense to go to tournaments, or as I prepare for specific tournaments.
We
But
have a question in the chat. Who's the groom?
Who's the groom?
So so I actually I guess the Craven King is the groom in my, yeah, because in the backstory he's the groom as well, in their afterlife. But yeah, so it's the Craven King, but Lady Older's far more important in my army. I play her often as my general. And then I also have a Knight of Shrouds where he's more of like the groomsman. But I also sometimes play him as the general. But really the stars are my banshees, and I have another unit that is all painted with like gold hair, and they have like knives for hands, and they have lots of limbs. So that's they're my other favorite unit.
I,
Do you
I like
have
the backstory.
one banshee that is inappropriately wearing white to the wedding?
Actually, yes, because she's the head of Banshee. So
Unit champion, obviously.
she
the
wears
mother-in-law.
The only one who could get away with it.
well, she wears a white veil. And how I kind of think about it is that in England, that a lot of the bridesmaids actually wear white for like for my understanding, to try to like make sure that like the bride doesn't like get stolen, or like, there's like more history behind it. So some of the bridesmaids wear white veils in my story of Nighthaunt, but it's really to denote who's the leader of that unit, so that I don't get them mixed up, and so that I don't accidentally pull the leader of the unit and lose any of my buffs. That's actually why they're painted that way.
These are corpse lines for anyone who's curious. These are corpse lines.
Yes, they're my Dread Scythe Harridans. They're my favorite unit. They're the ones with all of the knives for hands, and they do a lot of damage. And I remember in the tournament that I played, I like blew up a ship by doing like 1,000 paper cuts. That's how I thought of it, because I sent like my whole unit into like this like ship, and then they did like a lot of damage, and they're like, oh, the ship is gone, and I was just like giving it little paper cuts from the bottom, just slowly deflating this like ship.
And overall, ever since Living City got, we'll say, fixed, even though I disagree.
Good word for it.
Yes.
Fixed in the veterinary sense.
Yes. Zynga. So played Living City for a long time because I'm garbage at deployment and movement, and it's ever since I took my training wheels away, I've been playing other armies. Yeah, didn't like Living City change. Really missed being able to just bring full ninjas off the side of the board wherever I want and get them into combat. But I agree with Sean on the when I first looked at the tactics and new relocation orb, whatever that's called. I don't ever want to play that.
I love that mission.
I hate it. Not a fan of that one, and I don't know. I mean, I guess so far I've been having fun with the new edition. Yeah, Rocco's right. Dragons need to be fixed. I never ran dragons in my Living Cities, so it was fine. I'll lay my head
fine now. Absolutely fine.
Yeah, dragons
I played them this past weekend. Yeah, they're a fine unit now.
and when you say fine, you mean bad, right?
No, I mean it's 700, but they're basically just better foams at this point, right?
Yeah.
They're more wounds, they fly, and do less reliable damage. So actually, they're kind of worse foams in some sense.
Well, people look at foams and are like, oh, they're so tanky. Not really. Foams are paper.
No, that's where dragons have the advantage, right? They're twice as wound dense with So, and being 5 models on an objective really helps. They have a better board presence than foams, and you pay for it, right? They're 340 instead of 230.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I mean, having armies that are quote unquote broken just forces you to be more creative.
It sometimes can force innovation. Yeah, I mean that's the good scenario, right?
Until the new book, everyone really downplayed Nighthaunt, and every time I took it to any kind of tournament or I went to play it at any kind of store, everyone's like, "You play Nighthaunt? You're gonna lose." And I was like, "Okay, sure, maybe how you play Nighthaunt, but."
Well, and that's the thing is people are so willing to give. There's some realistic expectations, and then there's a willingness to give up too soon, and
I don't know. Nate was playing Nighthaunt back when they were terrible. Nighthaunt top 8'd at LVO before the new book.
But there was a British player at Worlds that went 5-0 or 6-0 in the singles, and then went like 6-0 in the teams all weekend with the old book. I mean, she was wrecking people.
Rania?
Rania, yeah, she was wrecking people.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's just that sometimes it takes a more creative look at certain armies. If you just have to look at it in a different way, and sometimes the first time you take it out, everyone might be like, "That's not how you play that army," and you're like, "Well, I don't know. Let's see how it goes."
see how it works. I'm excited to put.
I think the biggest adjustment for me with the new GHB is probably the grand strategies, because they're much harder to get now. Unless you have a book that has an easy one, like the Fire Slayers one or the Doc one. The Giants one's okay, but learning to realize that I may not get these 3 points, right? Whereas before it was like, I get 3 points, nobody cares, right? Everyone gets 3 points. They were like charity points. And now you have to actually think about it. At least I've been playing Stormcast, and the Stormcast ones are bad. There's no good ones in the Stormcast book. So you're locked into the ones in the GHB, which, they're all pretty challenging. And unless you're tabling your opponent, which, okay, that's one route, right? But if you're not doing that, they all can be quite challenging to get. So I'm the kind of player that plays a lot of close games. I don't really steamroll people. It's just my play style. So I've had to really adjust to not having those points as kind of guaranteed in the bag. So that's been kind of one way that I've had to adapt to the new GHB.
We've got Anthony saying you can win with any book. I would respond to that with no, you can win with any book.
Any book can be won with.
Yeah. Recently off his 5-0s with Skaven,
Slaanesh,
and Slaanesh.
But I mean, to be fair, 9 Storm Fiends is not really Skaven; it's 9 Storm Fiends.
Fair.
So you didn't win with Skaven; you won with Scryer. Let's be clear about what
you won with 9 Storm Fiends. No, but the Slaanesh win this past weekend was great. They're a tough army to play well. So good on Anthony for that.
I heard the secret is just rolling 12-inch charges with Sigvald.
That helps. Yeah, definitely. He's much better if you roll 12-inch charges. If you don't roll 12s, he's kind of cracked.
Yeah, I mean, just get good and start rolling 6s. I mean, everyone knows that's one of the secrets.
We've come full circle.
I have that tattooed on my arm. It says roll 6s win games.
That's amazing.
I looked at Slaanesh for Steel City, but my list I made is a painting army. It was very demon heavy, demonette specifically, and only one keeper, and it's just like I have no idea how to win with a demon specific Slaanesh army.
I don't think you can.
You don't.
Yeah, it's and I don't mind going for a hobby award, but I still want to give forth my best effort. I don't want to show up with something, go for best painted, and go 0-5. So it's like, why you're there, it's still not fun.
Yeah.
But,
I've heard summoning chariots is good.
Well, I start with
I don't
chariots.
know if that helps.
That's my problem. I'm Godseeker. I want chariots and demonettes, and I run forward, and then I die. But at least with Daughters of Cain, I have a 6-up ward.
And a 4-up rally.
Yeah, that's true. Well, you're lucky if anything survives the combat to get rallied, typically.
Yeah, well, no, little shout out to Dayton, who rallied 9 or 12 snacks on a 4-up. That was fun.
Yep, that'll do it.
I didn't rally a single dragon all weekend. I was kind of bummed about that.
You're also not doing it on a 4-up, right?
Yeah.
Max.
Before I bow out, I did double check Steel City. It is tomorrow for the list, so I look forward to seeing you guys there with my crate and a Flamespire Phoenix with Anointed. So get ready for that.
Yeah,
Nice.
look forward to that, Chuck. We got there's 3 of us coming out from Detroit, so we're looking forward to it.
Look forward to seeing you guys.
Mike added, right?
Yep.
Nice.
I'm just going to read a couple donations here. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for making me run. All right, so People 304 staying on brand, saying Rat. I wonder who he voted for. Objectively, mediocre Big Boss going, Doctors of Warhammer? Indeed. Ty saying, this one is for the doctor from Detroit. Sean, which event are you headed to next?
Steel City this weekend. Come on out.
There you go. Just got, I didn't know if I had to do the 2 donation rewards separately, so you get 2 this block. Well, no, you just have to donate at the one time, and you're eligible for all the prizes in the block. That's but thanks for $5 twice. It's a great cause. Nerd Dad TJ says, keep it going, Rantathon. Oh, we will.
Little shout out to our FLGS owner, TJ, manager.
Dos Asios showing up.
TJ's a gem.
From the Mortal Realms podcast, saying you're not alone. I was going to get back to y'all about what you did. You know what you did, and you made me cry, but it was a good kind of cry. So thank you so much, and remember, you have friends too. Gatekeeper saying Negash the horse, spelling it Neigh. Nice. Good meme. Microphone saying doctoral heresy. Thanks for the $5. Dr. Imp, I'm just going to go with it's Dr. Imp saying for the art and more space marines, more milk, drinks, and art. Yeah, no, I agree. And thank you so much, Dying to Batik, for your $5. So we have that Horus Heresy bundle plus the $100 gift card. I call this the enabler block. If you're not,
I was gonna say,
go ahead.
I was waiting for you to call out mine to be like, and apparently Alex is not ashamed to be entering to win his own block.
For sure. I mean, who isn't excited about Heresy? I'm going in head over feet into
I'm
Heresy.
not. I don't get it. I have no idea.
I love it. I'm gonna play it so
Nick
narratively.
has changed his faction, his legion, like 6 times in the past 24 hours.
I'm terrible at decisions.
That book is like, or that box set is something like, I think it's like a $500 like MSRP or somewhere around there, but it's like $800 worth of minis. That box.
Yes,
Can somebody give me the TLDR not super fanboy version of what the hell Horus Heresy actually is?
Skaven at
as a concept and as a game.
2,290. Sorry. Wow. Okay, Beasts of Chaos and or Fire Slayers at $40. Y'all got some heavy lifting to do if anyone's gonna save Brendan's fate. But we are at $4,500. Well, $4,520. Our next milestone is $5,000, so $480. This block, we'd love to see it. That'll unlock the next milestone, which is Muppets Revolved. If you remember, Muppets Evolved spawned from, I think it was the first Rantathon, even not even the second one.
Yeah.
We haven't gone back to the post-apocalyptic Muppets RPG setting that Vince Venturella designed in a while. We got requests last year that it wasn't on there, so Muppets Revolved, that one shot will be run in some manner for your entertainment.
So who's going to answer Sean's question? Because
I
would like to second his question.
So what is Horus Heresy?
I don't want a half an hour dissertation.
No, here it is. Horus Heresy is a 40K. It was a historical war game.
Okay.
So are the rules different than like regular 40K? It's like a different game completely?
It's like 6th, 7th edition 40K rules. So super complicated blast templates.
It's still full table size, full armies. Yep. It's just a different. Okay.
It's actually like 2,500 to 3,500 points as a standard game.
Got it. And can you use like regular 40K models, or it's a whole separate deal?
It's a separate system.
Got it.
It's mostly Forge World. It's stupid expensive, and it's overly complicated for no reason, and people play it narratively. If you play it to win, you're kind of ostracized.
You just lost me on 3 straight counts. Three direct strikes. Really expensive, overly complicated for no reason, and folks play it for the narrative. Strike 1, strike 2, strike 3.
Yeah, see, I've recently started going back into playing D&D, so I was like, I play AOS and I play like some, role-playing RPGs, but that's about it with like my personal free time. One
game is already too much for me, so
I don't know. Marvel Crisis Protocol is fantastic.
That's the one. Also... If I get into one, it's Marvel Crisis Protocol. I own like $1,000 worth of minis that I play with my son. We just push them around and have a laugh. But I'd love to get into it like as an actual game. It looks really fun.
Nick's description also perfectly describes basically every Paradox grand strategy game. So that idea of overcomplicated for no reason, really expensive. So it's the paradox of the Warhammer community.
Yeah. I love the lore. I'm gonna stop talking about heresy.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
This is why I would advocate for shopping smarter, not harder, when it comes to any of our Warhammer gaming, because it
I don't know. That's an entire shelf of bad decisions.
Well, but yeah, I mean, like there's sometimes where, as I have to warn my partner, sometimes you have to refrain from the impulse buying and make sure that the unit that you're buying will either improve your army or will just be a good hobby project for you, and that you'll then fit into your army. Because having like a random summation of 4,000 points that doesn't actually make an army or makes a bad army, isn't overall helpful because then you have to buy more to actually make an army.
No.
No,
Sometimes
I'm the worst.
I just want to know it's there.
I have a hotline to shout out to Mini Stomp. I have a hotline. He's on my favorites list. I write a new list and just buy everything for the list, and I don't even want to play this. What did I just do? So it's he's the best in the business.
That happens to me all the time with Stormcast and eBay. I will be on eBay and Stormcast stuff because everybody buys it and everybody has it. Winds up pretty cheap on there, and I'm like, I could use more castigators. I might run that
Dude, if you need castigators,
60 castigator list
because I've got like 40 in the basement.
Well, I also have 40 in the basement. I don't need any more, thanks to eBay.
Yeah,
such a trash unit. They're so bad.
It is. Well, at least
they're better now. They're better, and they're still not good.
I have so I just thought of something I want to ask everyone. What is everyone's thought on units that are being slept on right now? And I'll kick us off with forget the actual name of the unit, but Boss on Dog and Cruel Boys, the one that came in Dominion. I think the 170 point 10 wound mini Maw Crush is an incredible value that's just being slept on right now.
Yeah, I was just talking to somebody about him the other day. He's never wound up on one of my lists. I don't see the value. I mean, I get it. Points per wound is pretty good, but I don't think he really does that much on the table. I don't know.
He gets in the way.
Kill a boss on Great Gnashtooth.
Yeah. Kill a boss on Gnashtooth.
Boss on Dog. For everyone. Who else is? What are your calls for sleeper units? Who's sleeping on the good units? And what are they?
I don't know. It's hard for me to say what's a good unit that people aren't actually using. But I know there's a lot of cooler, impressive looking units that people shouldn't use that they try to use all the time, or they just buy and then intending to use and then it never actually ends up fitting in their army. I don't know.
I didn't come on here to be attacked, okay? Just because I'm never going to practically use 30 Blood Knights doesn't mean I shouldn't own 30 Blood Knights.
Well, I guess in my mind, what I'm
10's
thinking...
probably enough, but 30's a solid number.
See, it's
what I'm thinking about is as a Death Army player,
yes.
A lot of people ask me why I don't play with Nagash in my army, and I say because he's a wasteful unit. He himself, as a god model, counts as a jillion points, and he's so wasteful.
Pretty good.
Why are you coming at me?
I'm
not role playing my character anymore. Now this is just brutality. I'm already dead. No,
for my play style, at least, because for Nighthaunt, I don't find that I can interweave a lot of my allegiance abilities well enough, so it ends up being Nagash surrounded by a lot of other things.
Yeah, isn't that awesome?
But it's not my play style, so a lot of people come at me for being like, why don't you use Nagash? And I was like, because to me, I could have 3 or 4 small units for the same amount of points as Nagash, and it's a lot more effective rather than everyone just trying to come after Nagash and try to kill him.
Yeah,
I don't like having just one god model or just one model that everyone's like, oh, obviously, if we kill that unit, your whole army is gone.
No, but then you just switch to hard mode, and it gets extra fun because you throw caution to the wind. You're I already lost this model.
Well, I do practice what we preach on my YouTube channel with Rocco, your boy, that it's our style of building lists is a lot of trying to have multiple things so that our opponents have no good decisions because everything is important to our army. Well, nothing is important to our army all at the same time. So then our opponent always feels mentally that they've made the wrong decision. And so they never really know if they're going to win or not because they don't know what's the key, what's the linchpin to our army.
We've got Reliant in the chat saying Nagash is trash. Who would like to respond to that one?
Whoa, that's fighting words.
I'm sorry. I have evidence here to the contrary. Look at how great this Nagash looks.
This artwork.
Does this look like trash to you, sir?
Points wise, yes.
He definitely changes your playstyle. You're 100% right, Jackie, on that. It changes the way you have to play the game because you have to get value out of him, right? It's 1,000 points basically. So I like Nagash. Is that Brendan back there?
That was Brendan.
Yeah.
He just
keep an eye on your hammer. Are you gonna steal your hammer?
That's the real reason he's here. Is he's here to steal my hammer. That's why he agreed to put himself through all of this.
That thing down.
It's the long con. The long con.
People should always play what they want or what makes them have fun, but I would just advocate.
They can't quite see you.
That.
There you go.
Oh.
There we go.
I would just advocate that there's more than
Absolutely.
one way to, to play AOS, and there's more than one way to build an army. So you don't always need the big, fancy, impressive model unless that's the way you want to build your army.
I'm sorry, Twitter has told me there is precisely one way to play Sigmar.
And Twitter is always correct. Especially
Oh,
when you're
yeah.
Warhammer.
Oh, yeah.
Twitter can simultaneously give you the best advice and the worst advice, and it might even be the same person.
Yep. Oh yeah.
So my pick, I don't know if it's a sleeper hit. I'm gonna pick a unit that I like, and it has me think.
Castigators.
It's not. No. My old favorite is Blackguard, and the reason why is because I think with some of what the new GHB does and Purple Sun and some of the ways that just Darkland Covens itself, you're always going to have that sorceress there, so they're always getting +1 to hit. They don't have to be. You don't have to use a lot of attack on them. It's a lot of attacks in a fairly small profile with a longer reach. They're already Ren 1, and you have strong casting, so you're going to be getting that to Ren 2 by putting the Sun out. They can be bounty hunters, so they can be damage too. I don't think it's, there's plenty of other things in the game that can do that, but it's just nice to see Blackguard sort of indirectly get a buff since they're my favorite unit. So
And
this is my yearly checking in and being like, should I play Darkland Covens? And eventually, the rest of the community is like, no, don't. Why? Please stop.
No, the Tempest Eye list. Tempest Eye list I've been messing around with has a unit of 20 of them because turn 1 they're moving like 17 inches and still charging, and
they can be, yeah.
And they look slow. So protectors. Before we forget, protectors are being slept on. They're incredible.
Yeah, I played them this past weekend. This is such a good unit. I mean,
right.
To be fair, I think when the Stormcast book came out, a lot of people were saying actually protectors do look really good. I don't know how that's changed with the new GHB, but I mean they've been a solid unit since the new book came out.
Yeah, I've seen them a lot more in the last maybe month or so, kind of popping up in lists. I'm not quite sure why, but they're definitely very, very good.
Has anyone?
I think my unit. I'm a big fan of Paladors in Stormcast, and you never see them in a list, but they're such an interesting unit. I mean, in the new book they got a rend 1 across the board, 200 points for 3 miles. They teleport, they shoot, they charge. Just a good unit, and I feel like there's a spot for them, but I never have the points.
And then ride the wind. Ride the wind.
Yeah, I mean they teleport across the board.
Right.
Like, they're just a nice unit. Mine and 1B for me would be Vargheists. I think we need to see more Vargheists on the board because deep striking giant bats is pretty awesome.
Yeah, damage 3 and bounty hunters.
Yeah. As long as you can roll a 9 when you pop up, which I can't do, so I won't be playing them. But some people can.
Nighthaunt players can. Playing Nighthaunt is just training for rolling 10s. Dan, I know you're out there. I've seen what happens when you roll charge dice. I just want you to know I don't appreciate it.
Two weekends ago, playing Big Stabbas into Sylvaneth, I made 5 10+ inch charges without a single reroll, which is clearly average, right? Into a fight last Tree Lord with 10 Big Stabbas, and I will never do that again because we did the math. It's like 0.02% for that to happen.
And I think my favorite unit, I mean, as I said before, is the Dreadside Harridan. I don't know if they really are a sleeper unit because I'm not really sure how often other people use them, but I know before the new book came out, a lot of people preferred using, like, I don't use them, so I don't know what they're called, but they were pretty much the little swordmen for Nighthaunt. But I liked using the Harridans a lot better.
Be good.
Yeah, so that a lot of people recommended that I use those models instead of the Harridans, but I just got so attached in painting the Harridans that I forced their way into my army to make it make sense points wise, and they do a lot of damage, and they are relatively resilient as long as they stay with one of my buff heroes, so that I can bring them back to life. Otherwise, they die kind of quick, but
one of the things
problem with Nighthaunt in general.
One of the things I didn't get to talk about with Vince when we were on talking about playstyle and stuff is confidence in the units you play. There is a mental factor in gaming, sports, and anything, and I feel like it's harder to quantify for people, so it never gets talked about, even though if you ask any competitor on the planet, about the mental game, they'll be like, yeah, there's a mental game, you know. And if you don't have confidence in the stuff you're putting on the table, it's easier to beat you, you know. And it's just it goes to play style. It goes to like people are like when you put something on the table and you play it with confidence, there's a certain percentage of people that will automatically just play a little bit different because they're like, what does this person know that I don't know? You know, like that mental game. And I'm not even talking about like literally poker playing people with some of your decisions, which is also a separate other factor where you're like mental magic. You're basically like Jedi mind tricking people.
Well, and this is why I don't expect for myself to remember everything. That's why I write out what I call my cheat sheet. It's really like I combine all of, you know, the little playing cards for all of the different models, and I hand write it so it helps me remember, and I have it on one sheet of paper so that I can look at it quickly and remember which model does what spell. So then I'm not trying to hyperfixate so much on what my models can do, and I can focus on the gameplay itself. And I just found it really helpful because that was my biggest struggle in playing AOS, was just remembering all of the rules and, you know, switching different units out and slightly modifying my army. And so I just found, like, even though I was the only one at the various tournaments and like play areas that I've gone to that has it like written down, it makes me feel a lot more comfortable to to gameplay them out in other ways.
Just play Sean. He knows his rules and your rules.
Generally, that's the case.
I don't need my opponent telling me how my own army works. Like, I have played against people that like obviously know my army pretty well, but I always feel good when I'm like, I know my rules. I may not know all of your rules, but I'll figure it out anyway.
We got a shout out in the chat for Bloodletters being a slept on unit. Mortals on 6 is pretty good. 2 ranks, better.
Is anyone talking about Spirit Hosts and Hex Raids? Because those are good.
Spirit Hosts are incredible.
I love Spirit Hosts.
Okay.
Playing a unit of 9 of them is just absolutely frustrating to try and shift.
Yeah. I wouldn't leave home without at least 2x5 Hex Raids probably on the out list as well, just for great mobile screen. If they're not Galvets, you gotta do some work to kill them. Like, just a good unit. So fast too. I think it was like 16.
We got another shout out for Fomeroid Crushers and Cockatrices being slapped on.
Cockatrices,
the Fomeroid Crusher not so much. That one I don't understand.
Cockatrice was big in the last HP. Less good now without the monster, all the monster points, but
yeah. Spirit Host still great.
Yeah.
Aetherwings is allies.
Aetherwings, big fan.
Oh yeah. Rocker, your boy, plays with Aetherwings in.
It's just those. It's that 2 wounds. You got to put a whole unit in them to kill 6 wounds on a 6-up save, right?
Yeah, I mean they're a great screening.
They're
unit.
no save. They're save dash.
Save dash.
Yeah.
And to be really frustrating, put them near mystical terrain. Kyle can attest to this. He once failed to kill a Gryph-hound with an entire unit of his because it was sitting next to mystical terrain, and I just kept rolling the 6s to save it.
6s in games.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know. We got Basil in the chat saying Karzai slept on.
What up, oh dude? Yes, shut up, Karzai.
Yes, that's true.
Well, he didn't say it was slept on, but he's been saying it for months.
I'm a big Karzai fan.
One of my favorite little tricks to do with Karzai is to soften up something at range with another unit from your army, and then have Karzai just pop it off the table with 1 or 2 mortal wounds, and then get his buff by doing that. So just, knock down one of those little support heroes, have him finish it off, and be like, yeah, I'll take some nice, huge buff as a result. That's pretty good.
Wait, since you guys play so many different armies, do you ever have, like, regret that you took the wrong army entirely? Not just, like, the wrong units, but you just took the wrong army entirely to a tournament or to a game?
Yes, every time I play Darkling Covens, and I keep doing it.
Yeah.
This is their showing. This is their time. I've been training for this my whole life.
We got Mike in the chat saying that Karzai has a punk. Sean, would you like to address that one?
Oh yeah, no, we did. Get that man out of here. Can you ban people? Does that work?
I can,
Get him out of here.
but I don't think I didn't.
Not for opinions.
Oh, it depends on the opinion.
Well, not about AOS anyway.
Yeah, no, you're fine with AOS.
To
see, like,
Jackie's question, I've never regretted my army choice. I've regretted the list choice before. Like I'll
mm,
spend I get like right now, this last 200 points on this list, I keep going back and forth on what to bring. There's going to be one game where I regret making the choice that I made and not the other
yeah.
choice. But at some point, you just play Warhammer. You know, you just show up and play the games, and yeah, that's what it's all about.
No, don't kick Mike out. He's a lovely
Don't
dude.
kick Mike out. Mike's a good dude. He's wrong about Karazai, but he's a good dude.
Look,
He's,
because I
he's
feel like
basically
I
basically
never
my
have
brother.
remorse about like obviously because I only play the one army, so every game to me is just like a learning experience about how to deploy better or how to do my movement better. But I always wonder with like different players that play like 3 or 4 different armies. I'm just like, how do you like center yourself with you're like, okay, I'm gonna take Stormcast. Should I have taken Slanesh or should I have taken Daughters of Cain? Like I just sometimes can't wrap my head around how you decide what to do and then if it goes
I
bad or
basically
good.
Yeah,
look
that's an
at
interesting question. How do you decide? That's a good question.
I,
Actually,
I
I
look
don't really know.
I look at what list is the most efficient and makes up for my deficiencies as a player and play that.
Mm.
But then wouldn't you lean towards one army more often than others?
No, whatever's good at the moment.
I think
So
what
for you, it fluctuates.
Yeah, I like shooting a lot because again, I'm bad at positioning and movement.
Hence the big stabbers. Come on now.
Well, that's just see
that famed big stab of shooting that.
no. Big stabbers were just giving my opponent a bunch of really bad choices.
Yeah.
I find that often when an event is coming up, I usually have a feeling about what army I'm actually interested in playing. And so that makes it easier to know. And I don't usually regret that. Only at one tournament can I remember by like game 2 or game 3 looking at my army and feeling like, okay, I really regret bringing this. This was the wrong choice. Or like,
was that the Havoc we went to?
No. Well, that one I regretted throwing my back out 5 minutes before turn 1 of game 1. That was what I regretted there.
I regretted believing that was a narrative event and that I should bring a narrative. Havoc is the single most competitive Warhammer event probably in the world,
with a bunch of crazy rules like that.
Yes.
Yeah. Havoc is something different for sure. But yet, normally I find that going into an event or preparing for an event, I already have an idea of this is the army I'm interested in playing. And so, or sometimes it's, okay, well, this is the army that I can actually get together and get prepared in time for the event. So usually one of those two winds up being a big deciding factor.
Yeah, painting the night of the event, painting Friday night in a hotel room is a real thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
No, I've never done that. I used to bring the same army to multiple events and just try to like get better and learn the army. But the last few years, I've just been. No, that's Jake. You're thinking of Jake. Jake does it all the time. Lately, I've just been bringing different armies to every event just to kind of learn the game differently, see the game a different way, experience how other armies experience the game. And if I win, I win. If I don't, I don't. But for me, that's fun. It's like interacting with the game in a different way. And playing different armies allows me to do that.
Yeah, sometimes Detroit brings different armies to an event because they troll the whole event.
We would never do that.
Never. Nagash,
Never.
Giants, never happened.
Giants, never happened.
Wargog is the best war scroll in the game. Fight me. Definitely considered taking 6 Wargogs to Steel City just to see what happens.
My Wargog never does anything, even with the word save. Like I don't know. I just can't with him.
I mean, I killed a Kragnos, 6 of 10 pigs, an Incarnate, and then against Nate, I with 2 of them just did 4 mortals, blew both of them up, and he saved 2. So it's definitely swingy.
So
yeah.
When you guys go to the different events, I know like Rocco and I do this mostly him because he has all of the armies, but when you go to the different events, you have like your tournament army, and then do you ever bring a second one to play like casual games on the side, depending on like how long or big an event is?
No, 5 games is enough Warhammer for me.
Yeah, I'm a
I don't need more games of Warhammer.
Yeah, I don't think my body can physically manage more than 5 in a weekend, and that's already pushing it.
Yeah, back when I was young, I used to do pick up games on a Friday or whatever, but now I can't. Like I'm exhausted by game 3 usually on the Saturday. So
I've done it precisely once, and it was Sean's 9 Storm Fiends at PACA 2020.
Oh yeah, Game 0. That was fun.
Yeah, and that was back when I was running 3 keepers.
That was the last time I played a game on a Friday night at an event.
Yeah, and
Was that game?
well, yeah, because you proceeded to table me by top of 2.
I had a sense that it was going to be over quick. Like, I can swing this. It's going to shoot everything off. And that's nothing against Nick. That's a list matchup situation.
It was, yeah. It was just like, Brap, done.
Yeah.
I mean, I hold to it. Slaanesh was never as strong as people said it was. Just people weren't running shooting. Had there been shooting, they just
once shooting became more prominent, and obviously Slaanesh got nerfed into the ground.
It wasn't just that. They steamrolled out every army that was even remotely built on the Slaanesh tier right before Slaanesh showed up. Flesh Eater Courts nerfed into the ground. Skaven nerfed pretty handily. Like every single army that people were complaining about when Slaanesh released. We saw Slaanesh show up on a slight delay. What was that release? It was Flesh Eater Courts, Skaven, Slaanesh, Fire Slayers. Fire Slayers was still doing really good, by the way. Just nobody was playing it in the U.S. It was all in like Germany and Europe. They had like over around a 65% win rate when Slaanesh was still around. Like they steamrolled out every single army that was even remotely a challenge for them. And
no, hold on. Feck was still good into Slaanesh.
That's what I was going to say. Feck did not get nerfed into the ground. Feck changed. I mean, Gristlegord changed, but it was still very strong. It was the biggest change to me, and Feck was nothing they did to Feck. When the new GHP came out, and you could no longer buy more than 1 command point.
Yeah.
That hurt Feck more than any change that actually made it the book.
You're not wrong. No, you're not wrong. It was a meta change that just fundamentally, and they still haven't recovered from that. But sorry, I had to interject there.
Right now.
I had to interject there, like because it's a lot of books came out in that same time span as Slaanesh, and Slaanesh hit on a delay with how it showed up, and we knew it was kind of going to happen, but it was every single one of these armies kind of like got taken a little bit off the board, and so there was no shooting already, and it was just a daisy field, and they were holding a scythe,
Fair.
Sorry, it was the anti Three Stooges through a doorway. They killed the other Stooges, and they're like, all right, so go on. Sorry. I'm going to go back to eating food, which is why I've been muted.
Very close to bringing Feck to Steel City this coming weekend, and I still might. Let's do tomorrow. I still may do that. But no, I think they're in a pretty good spot. My army's painted. Feck is actually painted. Stormcast isn't done yet.
And to be fair, pre-nerf Gristlegord was the most oppressive thing I've ever seen in Sigmar.
I don't know that I would go quite that far, but it was definitely strong.
Well, as somebody who played a lot of Iron Jaws back then.
Okay, then that's gonna be a problem for you.
A little bit. I mean, it's no. What was Brad running back in the day? Dirty Snowball and Grotz. That was dope.
Yeah. The Moo clan.
Yeah, that was
pretty bad.
Like first clown car, least engaging game.
The most gross list I ever played was that Tomb King list back in like it was 2. That shit was disgusting.
Speaking of
snakes, etc., and
we got Tomb King Tristan in the chat.
Shout out.
So lately, what have you been preferencing between melee and shooting?
Always shooting.
I'm a big mixed arms player. I like to have a little bit of everything. It's just my play style. If I had to choose, I tend more toward melee than shooting. I've never played pure shooting. I have played pure melee, but my preference is to have a bit of both.
All I want is to put 20 Iron Drakes and a Rune Lord in an Ironclad. That's all I want.
It's just simple, man.
I think some of my funniest matchups have been against purely like shoot cast or purely against a shooting army, as my Nighthaunt playstyle is generally melee for the most part, because otherwise it gets super focused on just a few units, and that's hard for me to play. So the best one I've had is doing is rising my Nighthaunt out of the ground and like deploying them out around the different shooting units and sneaking up from behind, because I love it when people deploy badly and give me just enough room to deep strike behind them, and then the shooting never survives long enough to counter.
That's the hot take of the night. I love it when people deploy badly. So do I, Jackie. So do I. One of my favorite things.
Well, I mean, Sean, I've played you a few times. I'm pretty sure your playstyle is force your opponent to make bad decisions and capitalize.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's the key to Warhammer in general is make your opponent make as many hard choices as possible.
Yes.
Right?
But
I agree.
They may make the right
I'm-
one, right? So bad is not the right word. You want them to make hard choices. If they
Mhm.
make the good ones, and it's going to be a tough game. But if you put your opponent in the face of 0 tough choices, you're probably going to lose, right? Because that means you've done something very badly, or the armies just don't. It's a bad matchup or whatever. But you have to make your opponent make tough choices, and if you don't do that, you're going to be in a hard spot for sure.
I've been harangued to tell you all about my new narrative list, which is 1 Dragon Ogre Shoggoth and as many Razor Gores as fit.
Yes, the Razor Gore meta.
Oh yeah,
Great.
sorry.
Um,
And three units of Ungors because I have to have battle line.
but I do think what Sean says speaks to the difference between a player who, players at that basic level are still trying to understand their own army and what their own army does and execute their own army's plan. And so they can't really be focused on understanding and interfering with their opponent's plan because they have to put all of their mental resources into running their own. And so, of course, that doesn't really force your opponent to make very many choices.
In other words, you say there's like some sort of like good getting that needs to happen. Like a lot of. I know it's tough pills, but like sometimes the game's a lot more balanced and fair than you think.
Also, know the math.
There is, and I think I would.
Sorry.
And I think I would say it's an efficiency piece too. Like if you have learned your thing, so you just need to invest fewer mental resources into running your own army, then those resources can get allocated elsewhere. And for many people, they get allocated into banter. It goes into just interacting with your opponent. But other players, invest those in different areas, and one can be in, understanding your opponent and their strategy and forcing those bad matchups.
Yeah, the best way to force a bad matchup to me is be a new player playing a Siege list or a Seraphon list and take a 35 minute hero phase. Because I have just checked out of that game. And if you double me, I'll probably walk away and come back and be like, what happened?
I think after I learned all the rules to my army, or after I learned the specifics of like the synergies of this particular army list that I've made, I focus on deployment is probably where I focus the most, and the first movement phase, because as said on my channel a lot, is that you may not win in deployment, but you can surely lose in deployment, because if you deploy bad enough and your opponent's deep striking, you're going to get eaten really fast. So that's probably where I put a lot of my brain capacity, is just making sure that I haven't missed something in my own play style, or that I haven't missed an opening that my opponent has given me. And then the game just kind of plays out from there. But I always try to make sure that I'm really paying attention, which is sometimes hard at tournaments, because judges are coming over, the round is starting, and everything is just kind of like, okay, let's go as quickly as possible. And I'm like, haha, don't rush me. This is the important part of the game. Like, I'm not just going to put stuff on a table. We have to do this eat one at a time and making sure we're doing this properly, because if I just allow you to rush me through it, I'm going to make a mistake, and I cannot make a mistake in deployment.
You already know a fundamental that some others don't. Like a alarming amount of people don't, is like deployment's kind of where you can make up your efficiency in a lot of places of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And you should get good at your deployments. You got to practice your deployments too. I'd say that's one of the things you can practice, lose on a deployment, re-rack, practice again. But to know where to set that healthy boundary for yourself. Go, no. We're going to do it this way, because if you get flustered, you start making more decision mistakes down the tree of decision making. You're going to actually you're going to lose some of that utility down the line, as opposed to putting yourself on a proper foot, not getting rushed through that portion of the game, and so on and so forth. Like I see people walk up so flustered in the deployment, they're just like, they're not willing to set those boundaries. Look, think, do it. Again, you can make up that time later, and if you're not on the right foot, sorry, go on.
Well,
you also, I would say, in addition to deployment and first movement, you have to know the math, at least the basic math of what units do. I can't tell you how many times I've won games where somebody charges something into a unit and doesn't kill it and go, well, I thought it would kill it. I'm like, there was 0 chance of that ever happening. Yeah. That's not how math works, bud. Right, so...
That's another thing where in some of the games that I play, I get questioned like, well, why didn't you charge? And I was like, I don't have to. like
Yeah.
Oh wow.
sometimes strategic not to, and either to keep an objective or because I know that unit doesn't have enough, it doesn't have enough attacks to even attempt to kill it. So why would I just murder my unit unless I'm trying to purposely grind it down somewhere else? Like if it's like a
Or
sacrifice
distracting,
play.
yeah, keep somebody tied up. No, exactly. Having a
But
good trade, don't fight meaningless combats. In other words,
mhm.
And also, I think the biggest lie we tell ourselves as Warhammer players or newer Warhammer players is that average will happen. Like, you have to understand average is average is average over infinity, and you will never come close to that level of dice rolling. So, recently I played a clubmate at a Detroit event, and Fulminators charged, the +1 to hit, +1 to wound, some 2s and 2s, hit with all 10, wounded with 3, and he saved 2 on 6s. And my plan was for the thralls I was charging to die, and they did not. Right? Like, math sometimes does not work the way you
math
think it
will
should.
be a liar to you. In other words, so are you saying math lies to me? I've been waiting to hear those words kind of my whole life. Suck at math.
Averages aren't always average, right? So, and also, Mike in the chat tells me this all the time. Like, if you put yourself in a situation where a bad die roll loses you the game, you lost the game,
Yeah, you lost. You lost
right?
it
Because you
before
put
that.
yourself in that position for the die to ruin the game for you, and that'll happen sometimes. Sometimes it's your only play, right? Like when I played against Nighthaunt, where my whole shtick is I'm Ren 2 damage 2, and versus them I'm Ren nothing damage 1, right? Like I have to win prio into 2, and
It's
I
my
did.
favorite part about Nighthaunt.
Yeah. Whatever it was, like the Cruciator can just go away.
He's so good.
That unit is incredible for next to no points.
Oh man, I love being precognizant, telling everyone Nighthaunt was going to be good this edition.
Well,
I
and
love being that smart.
It was one of my
I wonder
favorite
if there's like
things.
a podcast people can go back and watch me saying like for the next like just 6 months. I'm like, Nighthaunt's going to be good, right? And everyone should be prepared for it to be the era of Nighthaunt. And then the crossbows came out, and everyone's like, Nighthaunt is bad. Look at this bad war skull. I'm like, oh, you guys are dumb.
Yeah, they're some of the best just collection of rules in the game, right?
Oh, they're so good. They're
the
just...
negatives to save and the retreat and charge is one of the best rules in the game.
Oh, that
with fly,
which is amazing. Yeah, it's so good.
That new book is so you feel like Spooky Ghosts too. It crushes it from a fluff standpoint as well. You are haunting the battlefield. Like it just.
Oh yeah, you also can't inspire presence. Like, by the way, so good.
And I'll add that when I was brand new to the hobby, one of the reasons why I liked playing Nighthaunt so much is because I didn't have to worry about rend, and it was one of like, it's not a hard concept, but as like with all of the different rules, I was just like when people were like Nen whatever, and I was like rend whatever, I was like
don't care.
Don't care.
Force. It's fine.
Good luck.
It's just a little bit more brain power you don't have to use.
One more math, I can tell to suck it.
Yeah. Well, because then everyone would be like, "What do you mean you don't take rend?" And I was like, "I'm a scary ghost.
Spooky ghost.
Rend doesn't affect me."
Spooky ghost.
So yeah, spooky ghost, and then they'd be like, "But that's my whole army shtick."
I spent points for this. It sucks to suck. And then you just like laugh at them. Yeah.
I played a Fire Slayers player with big stab spam, and despite telling him multiple times you won't get a ward save, he charged 13 Hearthguard, right? And I was just like, cool, I call the Wa. What's that? That's the thing I told you about where I have a 4-up ward. Oh, so you get a ward and I don't. I'm like, yes, that is how that works. And then
the reversal that all Fire Slayers players fear, then secretly have nightmares about. What if my ward went away?
All 13 of them died, and we rolled prio into 2. I won, and he went, good game. And I was like, shout out to Jack from Rerolling Ones, who taught me when your opponent concedes, you just scoop your bottles right away, then talk it out.
Yeah.
Important lesson.
I want to get back to something Jackie just said about deployment in the first turn. I think it's obviously really important, and I think it's more important in the new GHB. Because if you're in a bad spot at the beginning of the game, and you charge into combats you shouldn't be involved in, it's going to make your tactics even harder to get. So that, I think early game discipline has become more important than it was in the previous GHB, because you need to be able to control the board more so than, kill that or kill this or kill that. I think being able to put your units in the right position with battle tactics in mind, I think is really important. And if you deploy poorly or you rush in to quickly turn one, or vice versa, right? If you don't push the board enough in the early turns, it's going to make your tactics super hard because there's no more sit here or kill that to get 2 points. You have to actually do something, in most cases, unless you're playing Doc. In most cases, to actually complete those tactics.
And to add on to that, this is the first edition where you have to seriously consider if you give the turn away in a meaningful way.
I love Nick. He's one of the nicest people I've ever met. I don't know Dr. Truth's legit.
That's Bill, and I think he's just being sarcastic. Had to chat with him again, but
Nick, Bill said I was mean too. It's fine. Bill's grumpy.
Is that Sousa? Is the hot Sousa?
Yeah.
Oh, there he is. All right. Hey, what's up? I'm a big fan of your work with death and all that, and being good at America, internationally speaking.
I've won games that I shouldn't have won in this edition because people took Prio in 3 because they thought they needed it, and they just moved closer to me. It's like you have to look at the board state and really decide: is it the right choice? Can I weather getting hit and win? But I know I've lost games by taking turns that I should have given away.
Absolutely, I see it happen all the time. I think the default mode of playing Warhammer or playing Sigmar is to assume you're going to give away the turn if you get it.
Yeah.
Right? And if by chance your opponent misplays or something, and you can just table them, basically is the only reason that I typically will take a double if I'm going to get tabled or if I can table them. Otherwise, you want to give the turn away because it's all about that board state and controlling the objectives, controlling the mission, controlling the tactics.
It's a lot more tactical edition than earlier 3, and especially 2.
Mm-hmm.
2, I never gave away a double. I also played armies.
Yeah, I guess there wasn't much of a reason to. I don't remember. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I know.
I think this is an area where sometimes playing other games can be helpful, because I found that one thing that helped a lot with just thinking about positioning and spacing in Age of Sigmar was actually playing Blood Bowl, where really you don't necessarily want to be in situations where you're taking unnecessary hits, because every block that you throw that goes badly could wind up being an injury to one of your own players, and then you have to invest time and effort into building that player back up. But it's all about
Bowl,
not necessarily
best GW game.
But Blood Bowl, I think, teaches you a lot about positioning without necessarily engaging. And that can be a huge thing to understand, especially when it comes to things like screens and knowing how to set them up.
Yeah.
How am I controlling the space around my army without actually charging and making contact?
Speaking of which, I want to segue into something that I've been sort of passionate about, which is helping people get into this game. One of the two pieces of advice. The first piece of advice is play one army for your first year. And if you have not played one army for a year of a tournament season, do it, or the better part of a year. And the other one is I grudge Sean. I grudge Brendan.
Play good players.
Fairly, right? Like, play good players, because at the time I was a 2 and 3 player, and I wasn't going to run into him unless we got randomly paired round 1. And I knew I was going to lose, but I wanted to watch people that are playing at the top of the game play, and it helped me get better. Like Sean, like NashCon, what was that, 2019?
Yep.
I grudged you. You accepted. And you were like, you know I'm going to beat you, right? I'm like, yeah, I do. I'm aware.
It was a treble matchup. Again, not get you the player. The matchup was not good for you.
But afterwards, he won. I conceded, I think, top of 3. But we spent 30 minutes talking about how I could have deployed better. He was like, you lost the game in deployment and first movement. To bring it back to what Jackie said earlier, which I can convince the deployment and first movement are the most important parts of Warhammer after list building.
Mm-hmm.
So play good players and play the same models. Learn your rules, learn the core rules, and don't play something dumb like Eel Spam or KO. Play an army that plays Warhammer.
You can
Giants, right?
Yeah. Learn core.
You're not going to learn Warhammer playing Giants. Giants are awesome, but they're not going to teach you Warhammer. They're going to teach you how to play Giants.
And I'll add that playing a good player, often, like, the good players are really knowledgeable. So not only are you getting a game, but you're often getting kind of like a mini coaching session, because, like, as Sean said, like, he knows the rules of his opponent's team or army, so he can, if you're a newer player, he can help explain it to you, or just, like, in general, like a more, like, veteran player can help explain the rules that you may not know as well, or can explain how to use them
Well,
better, or how
it
to do deployment better.
also helps you hearing something from outside your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like someone, even if somebody's better, worse, if, better player or as good as you, hearing things from a different perspective. Like you said something there, Sean, that was just fantastic, which is like seeing Warhammer through other armies' lenses. Every single pro grinder I know, going back to MTG, Street Fighter, whatever it is, you will be a better player once you get a foundational knowledge of the game. Because if you don't have a foundational knowledge of the game and you try to you keep rotating armies, you never get a solid basis. You never get a solid foundation. But once you have that solid foundation, learning to see the game from other armies' perspectives that's your next step in the journey. Once you start learning what to take away from somebody that loses them the game. I remember the number of people I'd walk up to the table with OBR in their kind of heyday, and they'd be like, "Oh, I can't beat this army," and I'm like, "I know exactly how to beat me with your army, but I'm not going to tell you how to beat me." And the number of people who just give up at that deployment phase, or they see a bad matchup, and I'm like, this is the game where you have like 3 different factors that affect the straight out and out matchup beyond like basically any other competitive thing I've ever done, between the dice, the battle plan, and like player skill margin. Like, just play Warhammer.
Yeah, just because it's a bad matchup on paper doesn't mean you've automatically lost.
I mean,
you might still lose, but
sure,
doesn't mean you've automatically
and
lost.
even at equal skill, you look at like the chess player on equal skill. If they're on white, they've got a 4 to 6% margin of beating you on white. Like, they get that 4%, 6% advantage. I've never seen someone in a chess tournament walk up and go, "Ugh, black, well, I lost this game," and then just like, and that's such a linear, more fixed outcome than the player skill edge in Warhammer. And even at equal skill in Warhammer, you go, do you know how wacky dice and crap can be at the great equalizer of our game?
And also, don't be a jerk. I've gotten into so many more nitpicky minutia arguments at mid tables than I have playing top table players. Same NashCon, right? Like, we had to call David over to get a ruling because there was a corn player who had the pile in from 6 thing. And I pulled demonettes out of 6 inches, and he's like, "I pile in here." I'm like, "How? You didn't charge, and you're not within range, right?" "Well, I pile in 6. Not disagreeing. You absolutely do. You are not eligible to pile in range.
You're not. You can't activate. Activate and pile in are different.
Yeah, and dude gave me a terrible sports score because I was like, "I'm not going to let you cheat."
And I will add that my YouTube channel with Rocco Your Boy is specifically aimed at helping new players and to help bridge the gap from anyone on a knowledge perspective. All of our YouTube videos are specifically preferenced to help newer players, and then to anyone who knows how to play, to just, get a different perspective on how Rocco Your Boy and I play Warhammer.
And that perspective is that Nagash is the best, and you should play spooky ghosts. Wait, I'm sorry. Where were we? I spaced out here. I was just drawing this really great art.
So, actually, Jackie, if you have more of a point, please continue. I don't want to interrupt.
Oh, no, it's okay. I just wanted to put it out there that I know that sometimes starting into any particular hobby, or sometimes you don't know where to ask questions to, and that's why Rocky Your Boy and I started the YouTube channel, is because like when I started in the hobby, without having Rocco there to help explain things to me, I was like, I don't really know who to ask these questions to. I don't necessarily feel comfortable asking, the ether of the internet. Like, I don't know who to ask. So we tried to like help make YouTube content that would make it, that's not being talked down to, and that there's no stupid or foolish question, that we try to like prevent any kind of gatekeeping and make it open and try to answer any questions newer players have.
Yeah, are you saying Warhammer is better the more of us that get to play Warhammer? And
I think so.
Yes. And furthermore, to that sort of point, like, asking the internet, like, the internet's takes on Warhammer are just overall bad.
They're wrong. Yeah. The
internet
is wrong about stuff. Oh my gosh, we should go.
Well,
we should tell the world that the internet is wrong. Has anyone
get-
thought to mention that? No, go on. Sorry.
Well, you get like the takes
Sarcasm.
the takes on the internet on Sigmar are basically like that unit is stupid overpowered or unplayable. Like there is no.
Well,
difference.
everything
It's
is either ruining the game or
garbage.
or garbage. There's
No
nothing in between. It's all ruinous or hot garbage. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think we're in the best point of Sigmar we've ever been in, right? Like it's the most compressed, the most armies have play.
Mm.
I mean, feel free to argue with me. That's my hot take. Is like this is the best. Every revision to GHB gets better and more balanced. There's not as many haves or have-nots. They're actually listening to the community. They got rid of like book battalions, which were absolute cancer for balance. For balance?
Oh, for balance.
Oh, like you either had a 1-drop or you didn't.
Well,
yeah.
but that's a problem with 1-drop. Maybe they could have mitigated out 1-drops and not thrown out the baby with the bathwater because Brass Stampede did nothing wrong. Okay.
Oh my gosh, here we go. It only took an hour and a half to get to Brass Stampede. I'm impressed.
So
Well, then we have.
I
things
find
like,
your you just like I find your Sigmar takes lacking.
there's only one army I don't like playing against right now, and that's LRL. Also, I hate elves, but any army whose shtick is you can't do anything your army does because no is not fun to me, right? It's like, oh, you want to cast? I'm sorry, no. Oh, you want to use a command point? Spend 2, right? Like it's just not.
which does has.
I'm being
Which
told
does
by
have me
my ethics
concerned.
advisor right now. We're close to $5,000. Not to interrupt you here, but very important charity fundraising going on. You hold the thought. I'm told that whoever tips it over $5,000 will be offered a seat on Muppets Revolved, so you can pay to play. If it's done in this block in the next basically 20 minutes.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah, let's do it. It's for mental health and Sigmar. Come on, folks. Oh,
All right, sorry. I cut you off previously, Alex.
General Ward.
But I do think Nick's point is what has me a little bit concerned about. So Umbraneth is the army that I've been waiting for ever since I joined Age of Sigmar. I want to see Malarians take on Dark Elves. I want to see what's happened to Malekith and the souls he's gotten a hold of. And I can't wait, and also I'm tired of waiting. It's this weird juxtaposition at the end. Yes, Nick, I see you shaking your head. But I agree with your point that it seems like it would be very fitting for an elf army from the realm of Shadow, led by the Shadow King himself, that they would be very like counterplay oriented. And it has me concerned seeing the reception to Lumineth and to playing Tzeentch, that if your entire army's shtick is saying you don't get to do the thing you do, even if I love playing that army, my opponent is not really going to have a great time. And so, I have nothing to base it off of. This army doesn't exist. There is no inclination it's coming anytime at any point. But it's just that tiny little voice in the back of my head that says, well, what if no one likes playing the army you really want to play? It's kind of disappointing.
There's enough trajectory with Sigmar to know that elves are going to be dumb. And it comes back to fantasy, right? Like high elves had a 2-up magic ignore. That seems fun.
Well, I am happy though.
Roll 2s.
As you said, like it seems in 3rd edition that they're trying to holistically bring back all of the different factions and armies that existed back in fantasy before fantasy got blown up. And so I think it's exciting to bring back all of those things. I'm a little disappointed with what happened with Living City overall, because I know a lot of people were excited to use their old fantasy models or their old fantasy factions, and it's been a little messed up as of late. But I am happy overall that all of the different army types and all of the different different species that are involved, and that I think it's expanding in a nice way that I think the community was ready for, especially for some of the more like long time players predating Age of Sigmar.
I'm incredibly excited about Dawnbringer Crusade because it's going to be stupid. Like they love making super powerful rules for humans and elves. So
Order gets all the
Well, that's why
Chaos gets all the toys, and Order gets all the.
That's why Bestigors are the best Gores, because they reroll hits, reroll hit rolls of 1 versus like 48% of the meta.
I mean, they are. Well, I mean it's in the name. I can't argue with facts.
But no, I think we're.
There is one thing I wanted to.
Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead, Nick.
I was just saying, I think
was
Sigmar's
one-
in the healthiest place. Go, you.
There's one thing that I wanted to bring up that actually is a really interesting finding in psychology research that I think captures what we were talking about a little bit earlier about the idea of like playing games against talented players and actually trying to play through those, trying to even if you see the matchup's bad, to actually engage in the game and see how it goes.
Well, here you go, being a real
there's
doctor.
historical-
Fine, tell us. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
There's historically been a finding in psychological research that people who experience data, and
I'm sorry,
we
you're cutting
know
out
that
my
people who are depressed. Sorry, how's it now?
better. Sorry.
Better? Okay.
Yeah, better.
So so people who are depressed, we found, do better on measures of sort of data analysis. But that doesn't really make sense because people who experience depression, they often report feeling really fuzzy and thinking slower and not being very sharp. And more recently, what we found is that they are more accurate at analyzing data, but only if the conclusions are negative. If there's any room for a neutral conclusion or a positive conclusion, they are actually worse data analysts. So if you go into a game from that sort of demoralized mindset of, oh, this is a bad matchup, there's no way I can win, I'm not going to be able to get through this, you're actually less likely to identify the information that will help you get through the game or play better or even win the game in front of you, versus if you go in with a more even neutral mindset and trying to encourage yourself to say, okay, well, let me go play, let me go try, let me give my opponent room to make a mistake. There's no guarantee they'll play perfectly, and if you can encapsulate that mindset, it might actually make it more likely, even if you don't win the game, that you'll learn something at the end of it.
Yeah.
So what you're saying in the great goodening is you should go in more positive,
or at least neutral.
or at
I
least
feel like I'm gonna do my best.
If you can get to neutral's fair. You don't have to be Pollyannish. You don't have to be like, oh, it's fine, this matchup's bad, but I'm going to win because I'm the best. But I mean, if that helps you do better, then by all means, feel free to do that. But if you can go in and at least try to move out of that demoralized place, you might even just observe the information better and make better choices.
That's a great point, Alex. I'm gonna use that to springboard my soapbox about differential scoring. Because I think Warhammer, at least in the current edition, is much better with differential scoring because it allows you. The games are often close, even if you lose in a bad matchup. You're going to score tactics. You may get your grand strat. You may deny your opponents, right? So even though you may lose the game, there are still points to be had. There are still things to play for, right? And if you can, get 5 points instead of getting 0 by engaging in the game and playing it out to its fullest, I think the game itself right now lends itself very well to differential scoring, and I kind of wish more tournaments would do it because, I mean, it fixes the standings, first of all, but second of all, on the table, like it just makes the game more engaging, even in matchups that might be difficult or even one-sided.
You can
right?
find
There are
yourself
still things to play for.
And you can find yourself in a place where you get to learn a lesson too, which is always like I kind of like try to play to learn lessons even in a losing effort,
I want to counterpoint that. I'm not a huge fan of differential scoring, at least any of the systems I've seen. Like, I don't mean to call out this tournament. There's a tournament coming up that uses differential scoring, up your way, John. And I don't care for how how wildly different, matches in this GHB are so much tighter than before that I feel like you're gonna have a lot of winners that aren't winning, even though they got a major victory. Like, I don't. If we do it, let's compress the differentials a little bit instead of having as much.
Yeah, that's the classic counter argument to differential scoring, because saying that it's good presupposes that one has set the differentials appropriately, right?
Yeah,
you have to define bands of differential that then equate to some normalized scoring system, which is often 20-0, right? That's the most common normalized scoring scale. But I think if you can set those bands appropriately, the game is just much better, in my opinion, because it gives both players, especially in the context of a 5 or 6 game event where every point oftentimes matters. Even if you get a bad draw, a tough matchup, you can say, okay, I'm not going to get 0 here. I'm going to get 5 or 6 points, whatever the case, right?
Yeah, fair.
And it gives you something to play for and stay focused and stay positive and engage rather than just checking out when you get a bad draw.
So some of them are like you have to win by over 10, and I don't think I've won a game that wasn't a concession by more than 10. Like that's a lot.
Yeah.
Especially on like even on a single objective mission. How are you going to win by?
Yeah. You have to adjust the bands by mission, right? Because some missions you can score more, and it's less so in this GHB. Like in the previous GHB missions, like Star Strike or whatever it was called, and Border War, the scoring was different, right? Or the one where you burned all the objectives, right? So you have to kind of adjust it by mission. But I think defined appropriately, it provides a system in which both players, the winning and losing player, can engage the game through all 5 turns, and I think that is what we want, right?
I also Sigmar in general with timed rounds, like 2.5 hours seems to be the standard. It punishes some armies that win late, right? And
it can. Are we talking about chess clocks?
I'm coming around to chess clocks as a thing. After sitting through an hour of Seraphon hero phase back to back, I was just like, I kept going. But you have to play faster. We're going into 3, and we have 45 minutes left.
I have a second soapbox, and it's about chess clocks for Warhammer. So we used chess clocks in Prague this year. I had never touched one before we started prepping for the event. I was like, "Why? I don't need this. I've never timed a game. Like, it's fine. I don't need. Why are we using these?" I was completely anti chess clock. Fast forward to the event, I loved it. Absolutely loved it because I kind of caught myself during the games. Like my clock never ran out. So you set the clock for half the time on each player's side. My personal clock never ran out, and it was more freeing for me because if my opponent wants to sit there and think about whatever the decision is, I don't need to stress about it.
Yeah,
because it's their time, right? And I kind of caught myself thinking, okay, how often in a normal event do I rush myself to compensate for my opponent, as Nick just pointed out, taking maybe more time than should be allocated to a certain phase, right? I found it just incredibly liberating to just let the game play. You do your time, I'll do my time, and we just play the game. And I loved it. I thought I was going to hate it. Well, I thought I was going to absolutely hate it. And now I would be happily play any game on a chess clock. And I think it helped me, apart from any issue of the game maybe going to time. I never had a game go to time at Worlds for either player. It was not an issue, but it was more just internally seeing how the game plays out and noticing my propensity to kind of rush things change when they were on their own time. I thought it was great.
I'm a big fan of, like, let's say 100-player event, top 10 tables, mandatory chess clocks, otherwise upon request, right? Like if you're not fighting for the event,
you're playing on a different level at Worlds, right, than what me on my pretzel excursion is playing.
Yeah, sure. I think that's part of it. But for me, like, a chess clock is not a tool to make sure a game doesn't go to time. That's really not what it's for.
You've identified the flaw in the chess clock debate. Congratulations. It is not the solution. Its solution is not to solve games going to time. We have better levers for that. Now we can actually have a discussion.
Well, I completely agree. That's not what the tool's for. But I think
at Slaughter last weekend, a table next to mine.
It was by request in the pack. You could request one.
No. These guys went to time and they hadn't finished 3. And they spent a good 20 minutes arguing with each other about who wins the game and who gets what. And I was like, well, this is ridiculous because you can't talk it out.
Even with clocks, you're going to have arguments with players like at that level. You're going to open up other cans of worms. Like, so here's the thing. What about the ableism of chess clocks for people with time blindness?
Yeah,
that's fair.
Real.
I'm sorry. Like, are we trying to make this game? Not that I have strong. I'm philosophically asking this because these are questions. Yeah. People really flippantly throw out chess clocks as the solution to the wrong problem,
right? And
they don't consider that there are other levers for the problem that are less intimidating or prohibitive, or, quite frankly, I mean,
you also have a bit of
ableist.
Ableism. You also have a bit of ableism assumed. I am not willing to go get a TO. Like I don't know what the line is for.
No, I understand. Like
if I have a slow player, I'm gonna have to just politely ask them to play faster. With a chess clock, you've freed me from the the cognitive load of managing my opponent's clock.
This
at
is
our time.
congratulations. This is intersectional theory now. We are now talking about the intersectional experiences of individuals and the various barriers to play. No, I mean again. I'm not saying it's a question when people throw out chess clocks as the capital T capital A answer.
Yeah, no.
It's a
now, however,
go ahead.
In the pack, if it's optional, I'm 100% for it. If it's mandatory on certain top tables, right? If you can request one, that's cool too. I don't want to see it be mandatory for all tables.
Yeah. Go ahead.
My point was not to kind of mandate it as the answer, and I hope I made that clear.
No, you were very clear. Like I said, the minute you said that this isn't solving the time component, you're the first person in the years of this debate that has ever raised a new point. By the way, I'm legitimately blown away that I've heard something new. Sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot, or this is me like, wow, this is.
My point really was, internally myself was surprised by how much I liked it, and I thought I would hate it. That was the one point that I was trying to make, and I thought it was super interesting because there is a tension there, right? Like Nick was saying, between players that may have different, social anxieties or different understandings of the game, or what does slow play really mean, right? All those different understandings about how Warhammer gets played. I think there is a space there where having an independent timekeeping system could help, but it's not a solution, right?
I think it could be a good tool in that even for some newer players, not necessarily literally using a time clock, but if you're playing a more experienced player, like if you're independently timing how long it takes you to do your turns, and you're finding that you're spending like an hour on your hero phase,
that's a really good idea. Yeah,
you might want to rethink what you're doing, because I don't care how many abilities you have, it shouldn't take you an hour to do your hero phase.
And that's the other thing is, like, you need to, when you go to a tournament, I think there's a certain level of competency that we all would like to assume, but like
it's still a learned skill.
But it's still something you have to. But it's still part of it. And there's a reality to the fact that our game has impractical time constraints to getting to know it, get to build your army, so on and so forth. Like rushing to a tournament to play this army, and maybe you don't know it as well as you could, and the leaps and bounds that certain people learn from being in that pressure cooker versus in a store. There is a utility aspect to getting better at this game from being the fish out of water a time or two. I don't want to I don't want to sound like I think I have like a bias. I certainly have I'm not averse to chess clocks. I'm kind of in the side of where Nick is, so I can be explicit and I state my bias here. Not mandatory, but I like the notion of having them at top tables or an opt-in. Okay, not a default state. Yeah. I like the idea of them as an opt-in. Or like something, where it's like I don't want to see it get to the point of codified, because I don't think they're right now, the discussion around them I don't think is honest to what the issue is, and if there are other solutions to that same issue.
Well, and if you get a slow play warning, you're playing on a clock the rest of the event, right?
Sure. But what is slow play, real quick? Like it's one of those things in the social contract that we all understand. Point to me in the book where it says what slow play is.
As I played in an event recently. It was a local event. I'm not going to say it because I don't want to put anyone on blast, but essentially the policy was if your game goes to time, so whatever time is in the round, the game has to be concluded at that time, and that can mean playing all 5 turns. That can mean playing 3 turns and talking it out. That can mean playing 2 turns, realizing we're not going to be able to play through 5, and us figuring out who wins. All that needs to happen in the 2.5 hours or whatever the case is. And if that doesn't happen, you both get docked, whatever the number of points is. It's like a sports knock to both of you. And I think I kind of like that because it kind of avoids this issue of like having a 30-minute drawn out debate about who wins the game when the round's already over and they're trying to get the pairings up, and it becomes this whole deal, right? Like at the bottom line is playing Warhammer is someone wiser than me said this is a social construct. Like you're both there to ensure you're both party to the same experience, which is a game of Warhammer. You're not behind a screen. You're not playing Call of Duty online. Like this is a social situation that happens to be a game that we're both trying to win. right? So it's beholden to both players to make sure that game comes to a resolution.
And
And if you
Warhammer
guys
without
can't
that
do
social
that,
thing, go keep going.
then
Sorry,
you
sorry,
both
sorry.
get penalized.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
and
that's
like
great.
I like Brendan's take on it, which he can do when he runs Brew City as a much smaller event, 40, 50 players, where it's like,
I'm going to take some artistic liberties with Nagash here, everybody. I'm going to make this belt buckle huge, WWE style. I disapprove of this art here. We need a bigger. Continue, Nick. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I ADHD'd you.
But the way Brendan handles it is, your game needs to come to a natural conclusion, right? And if it doesn't, why didn't it? Right? You have to write that in, and he'll handle it. But you can't at a 104 player event. You can't do that, right? So I feel like it's just
you can't micromanage it.
And also, like, you have to look at the pack and go, I have 2.5 hour rounds. I probably shouldn't bring 50 pinks, right? Like, you have to also build your list to play in the way it's played.
Right.
Well, like, I submitted a list for 3,000 point Brew City. I submitted a list that was 1 Plague Priest and all Plague Monks, and I got a preemptive slow play warning. Like, this is your one. This is your one warning. If you get another one, you're done.
You better have some goddamn movement trays in that box, Nick, or we're gonna have a problem.
Yeah.
Hey,
I think the other thing is, like, you can award a draw. Like, that's a thing. If the players literally can't come to a conclusion, they take a penalty of some sort, and they both get a draw, which helps nobody, right? So nobody wants that. So I think it just comes back to the social contract.
Right, and there's a social contract.
And, yeah.
And I want to add that.
Go
ahead.
I wanted to add that, it's possible that at any one event you might go to time for, this, that, or the other reason. Your particular round starts late, your pairing starts late. But for anybody out there that consistently finds themselves going to time,
the problem is you. No.
Potentially, I would just recommend maybe purposely playing, like purposely timing yourself outside of a tournament setting to try to figure out what is taking so long. Because if you're consistently going to time at 2.5, 3 hours each and every tournament round that you play, like you might want to help to find some sort of tricks or some sort of strategy to play faster, because you're not going to have as much fun if you're constantly having to argue who won the round, and like you're never getting that satisfying I either won or I lost.
See, I
don't playing it out.
I don't know what Warhammer y'all are playing. I don't have. It's
not a death clock in Sigmar, right? It's just once you're timed out, you can only roll saves. Is that correct?
That's the way. Well, it depends on I guess that depends on the pack, right? So the way that it was in the World Pack, which is my only experience in an event that had chess clocks mandated in the pack, right? So it's the only one I can speak to. But so the way that event worked was each player got 1 hour 40 minutes on their own personal clocks, 3 hours 20 to play the game, which is more than enough time to play a game of Warhammer.
Yeah.
And if your personal clock hit 0, you were only allowed to do things in response to what your opponent was doing. Essentially, roll saves. That was it. Can't move models. Can't do anything like that. You're allowed to make saves, make ward saves, things like that. If your own clock runs out.
That's fair, and I know in
which that's one way to do it. I'm not saying it's the best way. It's just my only experience at an event that mandated clocks.
Well, as long as it's not a death clock, right? As long as it's not like in War Hordes, it's a death clock. If you run out of time, your army dies.
We have an issue in our game where there's not like a fail state in general, so you're litigating in a fail state that the game doesn't have, which is within the purview of a tournament. A TO can say like every third round I punch you in the mouth, like you get to come to this tournament or not. You sign away the rights to get punched in the mouth. They can put whatever the hell they want in the pack, but the thing is like you have this sort of grassroots game that takes a lot of its cues from at once, fools like me with a microphone and a camera on, whatever talking heads they favor, and then the tournament scene, and that's not the bulk of the Warhammer experience. So when your democratization of the game is left up to an elite group of people to decide how everyone else plays, it gets my hackles up a little bit.
Yeah, that's fair.
Interesting comment in the chat here about how not shifting off of points caps. Like, I have seen 40K move to like 1850 or 1750. Like, I think lowering points, if people are finding games going to time very frequently, which I don't think you should.
What Warhammer is everyone playing? What are your games?
I have not played a game to time at an event in 3 years.
Yeah,
3 years.
I've honestly seen most games go to time against like Sylvaneth. it was mainly because they didn't understand their terrain features, and they kept
That's
having to
fair.
like do take backsies,
User
which
error.
was a little frustrating.
You can't
And they
rule
just had a
out.
lot of models to move, so
Yeah.
it just ended up being very, very time consuming. And sometimes with the newer Sylvaneth players, there's just a lot going on. And when I was a very new Nighthaunt player, I was like, there's just so much to move and so much to measure. And now that I've been in the hobby longer, I'm kind of like, oh,
I
3
was like,
inches.
I
Like
was like you once, and you look over at the peasants who.
For a while,
well,
I
I
was
like I
running.
can just eyeball things better. Like I don't have to measure everything. Be like, oh, I can tell. Like I'm probably approximately 6 inches away if I get a charge off of 7 or 8, and I'll double check like once I roll. But then like I don't need to like micromanage myself, so I'm not wasting as much of my own time anymore in trying to
I think you
double
brought up
check
a
everything.
great point earlier, Jackie, about like using that chess clock as a tool to learn yourself, to get your times down. I think that's a fantastic point too. Is that sort of like the self reps, and anyone who's gonna go to a tournament. I know this is my privileged perspective of having a homie in town I play with, and a couple I can easily drive who are interested in Warhammer on that level. So again, I'll state my bias here, but you should be grinding some games before you go to that tournament. You should be getting in those reps. If the goal is to go to a tournament is the one place where the social contract is sort of written down for you to some extent, right? The TO sets the expectations for their tournament, and even so, if you go, I'm going to a tournament with like XYZ trophies, I'm going to a narrative event, I know that rounds last this long. That expectation has been laid forth for you to go, you need to bring an army that can play in it, and then it's a little bit on you, know thyself, a little bit on you to know, can I really play this army that at that level? I started to like, just from a practical standpoint, I just stopped wanting to transport 200 models. I'm like, oh, I can play it. I'm like, but do I want to push around 200 models anymore?
No, I don't.
So
And like every person will be a little bit different about when they're ready to go to tournaments or what kind of experience they want at a tournament.
If it's your first tournament and you're there, I'm gonna be chill with you. Don't get me wrong. If you're lying to me about it being your first tournament, I'm still gonna be chill with you.
Well, I think it's the classic struggle about tournaments, right? It's practice, or no, paint my army so I can go to the tournament, or practice so I don't suck at the tournament. And that tension leading up to an event is very real. We often
know that tension very well.
But it's also,
and I think I have I'm at a slightly different end of the spectrum, because I find that at any tournament that I go to, at least 1 or 2 of my games don't make it to time. We're at the end of 3, and we
found the Zinch player, everybody.
Kind of how the event goes run out of time. But and sometimes that was my problem, absolutely. And I found that with playing Zinch, that it was, I had to realize my own limitations in playing the army and how quickly I could play it, and the pressure that I felt playing the game.
1 minute to buy your way into
pressure.
Muppets Evolved. If it means that much to you.
But also, we gotta talk about playing by intent too. Like maybe I'm spoiled being from the Midwest.
Do we have to talk about everything? Jackie, I talked to you once.
We do have to.
What did I say?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We were talking about. No, it was that far ago. All right, go on. We have to talk about playing by intent. Sorry.
Because that's just like, maybe it's because I'm from the Midwest, but that's how I was taught the game. And getting into like somebody recently once quoted as saying like playing the millimeter guys is the most frustrating because they're technically correct and there's nothing you can do about it, right? But like you have to say like, we know they're 3 inches out. We know they are, right? We said that to speed up the game up. It does.
Well, and that's the other thing. Sometimes like stating your intentions, like that's how I made sure like some of my games at my tournaments didn't go to time, because I was saying, okay, my intention is to be 8 inches away for whatever thing I was trying to do, and they're like, yeah, that's 8 inches away.
Yep, looks like 8 inches to me. Next.
Yeah, so then we moved on.
If I make the charge, we'll worry about it afterwards. If I fail the charge, I'll set the models up on your turn, right?
Yeah.
Well, and then later on, like they actually measured, and that was like 8 1/4, and I was like, but I was like, I told you my intention was to be 8 inches.
So, and nobody in Warhammer who actually plays the game outside of TTS and then goes and pretends like they play it outside of TTS on the internet cares about being the precisest measurer.
Nope, I disagree. Ran into it. Somebody was like, actually, You're
You
2.9
do,
away.
yeah.
I'm like, I could not have been 2.9 away because I moved to 3 away.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
here's the
Wow.
dimensions of a
Impossible.
table. Let's go ahead and yeah.
And
I
and
ran
I
into it.
You know what? I will
found
give
as
away
a
the
new
first
player,
trophy
that
for
was an area where I
precisely.
lost time.
Mhm.
That as a new player, I was very focused on, I need to make my measurements precise because I don't want it to be
Well, that's
wrong
also
and then have other players be like
no.
upset or frustrated, not
That's
realizing
also
you're wasting a lot of time there on something that other players will happily like hand wave and say, no, you can be 3 away. That's fine. You can make it there.
let's
We
also
got plenty of
let's also
movement. Get outside. Yeah, no, get there.
let's also talk about pile-ins that somehow end up like 7 inches, right? Like,
That's well. That's knuckle. That's knuckle. That's
No.
knuckle guy.
Yeah.
That's a different problem. Like if you're gonna cheat, you're gonna, that's kind of
No,
the
I
cheat
only
idea.
moved the front of the base 3 inches. Yeah, well, it's a maw crusher, so you move the back of the base 9 inches, right?
Yeah. No,
Because that's how math works. Sean taught me the best trick, which is see if it's gonna fit. Bring a base.
yeah. Two
Bring a
point.
blank
Bring a
base.
base. It saves a
drop
lot
it.
of
Yeah.
hassle. If you have an
Especially if you're,
Autobird model,
if you're playing a big
base.
model.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Terror Guys, Maw Crusher, all that stuff. Bring a spare base.
The millimeter
Well-
things are the worst. It's just like I'm
That's
sorry, you can't.
Yep.
That's a good lesson, I think, to close this out on. We have hit. We've hit
Can I
time.
just say one thing? One last thing.
Sure.
Hey, Chat Gang, don't be that guy. Okay, you're not that guy, Chat Gang. Don't be that guy.
That's our conclusion.
Just don't be that guy. Okay, just you don't want. I don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be that guy. Just social contract. All right.
We,
Yeah,
we don't need
your
you to be that guy.
doctor's-
Don't be that guy.
The doctor's expert opinion is don't be that guy.
Yep.